welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Apocalypse Talk. All right, this is the Peace Dealer. Shout out to those of y'all who are live and well on this Sunday morning or afternoon, actually. Shout out to those of you coming into the chat right now. Uh, we are going to have a pretty amazing talk right now. Another follow up to episode one as we discuss more the end of the world during the beginning of the end of the world, at least as we know it. My guest today is actually an OG. For my day ones, you'll know that she is one of the first 10 people who I've done a peace talk with back when we were all kind of in this group of people who awakened and, or at least, decided to step on this path. So without further ado, I would love to introduce to you Ayse, A.K.A. Raziel. How you
Yes, yes. Raziel is kind of more my artistic muse side. So it's like my muse, my personal inspiration, influenced by quite a bit of different things I've researched, kind of in the mystical side of things and the spiritual side of the community. I'm really into astrology. I'm also a behavior analyst, so I kind of like to get a behavioral kind of understanding of what exactly is occurring with the planetary alignments and how much it affects us on a personal level. That's kind of one of my little creative pursuits I'm doing as well. And yeah, so I go by Raziel for right now. It is an angel from Kabbalah that's kind of like the angel of secret knowledge, also of laughter as well. That I find a lot of interesting connections in my personal natal chart to this muse that I see as an inspiration. So I'm going to be kind of channeling that kind of energy, and I wanted to definitely talk about some of the new changes, the new shifts in the energy that are beginning to occur, and kind of tie them to mundane events that's going on globally as well.
Sounds like fun, and I'm mind blown because that was the very first thing I wanted to ask you. Like, what inspired the name Raziel, and if it was tied to the angel as well. And for those who aren't aware, what is your sun, moon, and rising?
So my sun is in Aries, my moon is in Taurus in the 12th house, and my rising sign is in Gemini. I've had quite a lot of fun with Mars going retrograde in my first house, so I'm a Gemini rising, and it's been an interesting experience, yeah. But it's good to know, everything you learn through these different experiences, you begin to come to understand what it is that the cosmos wants to teach us, and kind of taking everything as a learning experience and moving that to propel you forward with a better understanding of how to best manipulate the energies for your own well-being.
Which is very fascinating to me too. You having a starring three and your moon and sun being exalted. I always
Yes. But
I
the thing is, that sun, that sun is battered by Saturn and Neptune
Saturn
conjunction.
and Capricorn, huh?
Yes, and
Right.
it's squaring. So that came of it, like, definitely was interesting, but the way I see it is the potential to bring a heaven on earth,
Yeah,
being able to mix Neptune and Saturn together in the practical reality. I believe with Saturn and Pisces, there's definitely that opportunity.
that's awesome. And
Yeah.
I was so it was super awesome to actually meet you and your sister
Yes.
in Florida. That was really dope. And
Yeah.
it what I marveled I knew you were a twin, right? But it did hit me that you both had Gemini risings and Gemini is the twin, and you see
Yes. I think it's due to the Jupiter that's right on our rising sign. So we're like Jupiter rising in Gemini. So it
Jupiter
just like
ascending.
it blew up the whole twin thing. Literally, we are twins. We are
Yeah,
always bouncing these ideas off one another, constantly talking. Her and I are like absolute best friends. She's like the love of my life.
I love
And
that. She's awesome too.
yeah,
Shout out to her.
yeah,
And
yeah,
of course Gemini risings are angels, so I love that you're embracing
yeah.
Raziel. Let's
There's
be
a
honest.
little bit of that, the angel devil connotation, because I do have Lilith in Libra making a direct trine to that to that Jupiter in my ascendant. So I
Wow.
feel very resonant with goddess, divine feminine returning, being able to step into their power, bring true equality, bring true freedom. I like to see Lilith as kind of like a Lucifer kind of connection there,
Yeah.
because I believe she's about liberation and being able to take your power, regardless of being completely exiled. Whatever, she was just still so intense about her beliefs and really took a stand on all of that. So I also resonate with that as well.
Yeah, Lilith is really tricky because you have like any planet or asteroid, the negative, evil counterparts and the positive. I feel like Lilith is a energy that the seemingly bad overshadows, what she really stands for. And that's kind of ironic. I think Lilith was how we actually met, or in like
Yes, exactly. Yes, because we were making Lilith videos right at the same time. Yeah.
yeah. Shout out to those of y'all who've seen those playlists. So
Yeah.
really, really, really amazing. I always love in understanding astrology more, how it speaks to you and these archetypes, how it really spells
Oh,
itself
it's
out.
so true. The
Yeah.
way I feel about, say like the moon tarot card, I have an understanding of the moon that it's deeply symbolic and it plays out in your dreams, which I think Lilith has something to do with that, as kind of like this succubus, Layla,
Mm,
night goddess, right? And it presents everything symbolically, but once you begin to trust in your intuition, you may see like a tattoo that a reader said you're going to see in a few weeks, and there's a eye hand tattoo, for example, what happened to me today. And I just pick up on the synchronicities and follow them along. And now that more recently I've begun to really trust my intuition, again, Lilith is kind of like the subconscious side of the moon. And it's about empowering it. It may present things in a slightly challenging or fearful way, like it
mhm.
might scare you a little bit, but I've learned to kind of embrace those experiences and kind of like love past them and just accept the intuition or whatever emotions that I appear may come up, instead of just kind of trying to play them down. I allow them. They're like my guests, like, you're here now. We're all good. You just need to be heard. And, then you move on from the experience and release it. But Lilith very much has to do with that like dark side of the moon, the subconscious. And once used consciously and for even good ends, not just kind of like your more selfish, egoic desires, there's help for that. And I think it does really want to empower us and give us liberation.
I love that. What do you feel about her being in Leo right now, especially after
Um,
Pluto?
I feel honestly like it's about a lot of not just women, but men as well, the divine masculine and the divine feminine, having to be comfortable with finally being seen, being revealed. The energy is a lot subconscious. It's hidden in the shadows. And I think it's about finally, presenting these more Lilith archetypes, different things that it affects kind of in the world, and us being able to move forward and embrace the more feminine side of things, kind of embracing the subconscious, no matter how scary it may be, and we begin to honor it. A lot of the professions now, pure science, like I'm a behavior analyst, and they really try to get us to step away from any subjective interpretations of anything. It is deeply
Yeah,
functionalist. It is basically what you can see, and basically that, and whatever environmental variables that could be manipulated and controlled in order to control behavior.
right.
But what I think is
Materialist reductionist.
Yes, so I feel like it's very, we need to marry back the divine masculine with
Yeah.
the divine feminine and kind of use it in balance. And I believe, spirituality and science could absolutely be integrated together, and we'll come to a fuller understanding of what's really going on, and then be able to control aspects, easier, be able to control aspects of our lives and get an understanding of what exactly is going on in the more hidden arenas of the mundane world, and how we can all be empowered, which I think Pluto and Aquarius is definitely that opportunity for us to do.
But I mean, not but what you said earlier really gave me a light bulb moment, because and that was one huge frustration I have with astrology, with science, physics. A lot of it is just outdated. A lot of it is trying to force an old model to work,
Yeah,
and new discoveries. And then I realized in these periods where a lot of these things came through, um, there were not really prominent women who were allowed to be educated, were allowed to really speak their mind. And I didn't realize how that directly impacts the lack of the divine feminine, which makes a lot of sense. Um,
yeah.
do you still have YouTube, by the way? Someone wanted to know where your YouTube, Instagram is.
Yeah, so yeah, I still have a YouTube. It's probably gonna be in Aisha is Miss Aisha's Raziel. I think that is like my screen name on that. I don't know if that's something I can add in the chat.
No,
Um,
I'm gonna look it up right now, and then I'm gonna put it in
mhm.
the description.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So yeah, I had my channel like way back in the day, like a decade ago, and I started I had less time for the channel as I was going back to school to get my behavior analysis degree, and it had to take a back seat, but now I'm like fully committed to returning back on YouTube and kind of spreading some of the different things I've learned in terms of both a scientific worldview and kind of marrying it with the spiritual as well.
I love that. And I really appreciate it too, because I know before we kind of went our different ways. I mean, I know in spirit we're still connected, but I really appreciate that too. Like,
Yeah,
you did your thing, I did my thing, and then we came back. I know before that you were just getting into, like, you were still learning behavioral analysis versus
yeah,
now, like, you're complete. We finished our Saturn return,
yeah, yeah,
which, by the way, I'm excited because now in Pisces, we manifested the knowledge and now we're completing the Saturn return by experiencing the blossoming of the power. So, in terms,
exactly,
do,
exactly.
how do you experience that as far as like your own powers? Or I mean, it's still just beginning, but I mean, I like
Yeah,
it's pretty liberating.
the Saturn in Pisces for me really brought about changes and me being able to be comfortable. Like, I'm a Taurus moon, so any change is very difficult for me to undertake. I understand when it's my time to, make the change, because I'm very, I have a very high sense of faith in the divine, in a larger order of things, and I've always been that way, and I'm always willing to make sacrifices needed in order to allow new opportunities to be presented to themselves to me. I've made a connection between the two. If you're willing to get out of your comfort zone, if you are willing to make some sacrifices, you will be propelled forward into a world that more better, understands you, supports you, and you'll be surrounded with more like-minded individuals. So I've always been very, very like I don't fight it. Like any change, I don't fight it, despite being a Taurus moon in the 12th house.
Hmm.
So I've had that understanding, but I think it's the Jupiter rising that always allows me to basically have faith. It has a really strong sense of faith that this is all part of a bigger picture, and it's a lot bigger than my own egoic understanding or whatever the events in my life are. But I think Saturn in Pisces was a big thing that catalyzed a lot of changes that occurred in my life. Like, I'm planning on moving, which has been tough because I've kind of rarely left my parents' house. But now that I'm a BCBA, I'm a behavior analyst, I feel like I'm ready to start finally going out there and like living in the real world.
So you're transcending the success, you're coming into your career because it's coming in.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's dope. And, once again, I just really love that you identify as like Angel Raziel. I think that's really dope. And
Yes.
and relative to that, by the way, for those who want to access her YouTube and Instagram, I put that in the description box below. I always ask women who have Jupiter on the rising, have you seen Jupiter ascending and did you like it?
No, and I really wanna see that movie. It's
What's up?
visually arresting. It's so good, and it's like she's like the queen of, like, the entire planet and stuff, and I've had interesting experiences where, I feel like I can almost affect the weather. I've had bizarre
No,
spiritual
I know
experiences
you
like
can.
that.
I don't
Yeah.
doubt it at all.
I've had really bizarre spiritual experiences like that, like one after the other. Like a decade ago, that was very much my learning time and
Yeah.
me being to start to see the power that I could manifest and being able to use that power responsibly and knowing that, you just kind of have to accept the process. If the universe is ending a relationship with you, you have to have, a relationship in your life, you have to have that underlying faith, with I think is that Jupiter rising that
Yeah.
kind of saves me at the last minute, will save the day. And it's about, testing. It's not easy. I have a connection to JC, I call him. I feel like the ascended master,
JC, I love
Jesus
it. Yeah.
Christ. He talks to me through water and stuff, and he's very humorous. Like, literally, he's perfect. I feel like the divine is very funny, which was another thing for Raziel because it has to do with laughter and Spirit is just hilarious. If
Yeah.
you listen, like you'll see the little synchronicities, and I truly feel, very appreciated because I've come a long way. I initially had my spiritual awakening back in 2012. So and being a twin myself, there's all this mythos like about like I'm half Honduran and half Turkish. So the Mayans were very advanced with astrology and all that stuff. So like even my ancestors, I feel like even me being a twin, there was this twin god prophecy that is like a feathered serpent, and it's Quetzalcoatl.
Mm.
And I feel like even that resonates. But I think it's about twin flames. I think twin flames coming together is the purpose, and that's what's going to elevate the consciousness of the planet. And that's what I believe in. I think it has a connection to do with the lunar nodes of the moon in synastry aspects between a suspected twin flame partner. Even though I do believe you can have more than one twin flame, or certain twin flames arise in like different parts of your life to like, it could be karmic, but I still believe, higher level soulmates still can mirror each other and kind of absorb that TF energy within themselves. But I think what can help bring the revolution with the Pluto and Aquarius is a lot of people being able to look at some of their fears, some of the different challenging things, and have faith overall and connect to your twin flame. And both of you together fulfill a divine purpose that is meant for the whole collective to heal.
Which Pluto Aquarius will awaken so powerfully. And to give insight on that, because a lot of us have struggled with identification, and I've projected, oh, you're my twin flame to certain people who I did have connections with, but I just really wanted them more to be that. And so for example, I've met multiple women who I have a twin flame connection with, but
Yeah,
I realized that, you know, given that this twin flame connection is the other half of your soul, you really do only have one twin flame. But I realized that they don't just express themselves in one human vessel. And that's when
exactly.
I realized that I'm not just a human, I'm a frequency, I'm an energy.
Exactly. And
So
the
I've met,
energy
oh, go ahead.
shifts.
Right. Yeah. And the energy shifts so that,
Yeah,
what used to be the same may change as you change. And
exactly.
what I realize is that I recognize this essence in certain women who I
Yeah,
don't only have that connection with. But what I realize is mathematically too with astrology, you can literally see the patterns in what specific connections and how it plays out. So for example, and this helps disillusion if you feel someone it is, you will see the signs and synchronicities. I was at a funeral the same day someone was at a baby shower who I have this connection with, and
right.
it was kind of
Interesting.
but it also helped me detach. So it's like if nothing happens with that person, I'm still in this twin flame connection. It's beyond the physical. And it helped
Exactly.
me, you helped me realize this is just returning you back to yourself and to
Exactly.
really, but I really do feel like we're more in a climate to enjoy these reunions and to also see them existing. But one important question I have for you, which I think you're the perfect person to ask, um, and it's something very misunderstood by those who aren't too familiar. Most people say that if astrology is real, how come twins have different personalities? And as a twin, like how would you answer that question?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So my sister and I definitely we're so similar and we're best friends. We have the same interests. We kind of bounce ideas off each other. However, we have slightly different experiences in life, but also the planet the aspects in our natal chart, they are expressed in a slightly different way. Like, I think the best way to describe it would be me and my twin sister Maxime. We are both sun conjunct Venus, and we're also sun conjunct Mercury. She kind of took more of the mercurial side of things,
Oh, that's
more
deep.
Venusian, even
Oh,
though she has both attributes, but
right.
it kind of expresses itself in a slightly different manner. And at the same time, we even switch, we even kind of
Right.
balance each other out at different points of our lives.
That was so
So yeah,
beautiful. The
yeah.
thing I love about that answer, and you just gave me another huge light bulb moment. That's amazing. Because a lot when people ask that question, the huge fatal misunderstanding is they're presupposing that your natal chart is fatal in the sense where you're stuck and bound to live by it. But
Oh
it's
no.
clearly a choice, right? Like
Yeah,
one person chose to do more than Mercury. And so that's really the answer to that question is one's personality is really a choice, but it doesn't make the astrology any less accurate, basically.
exactly. It's kind of the same energy, just slightly expressed in different ways. And over time, it kind of balances each other out, which again brings me back to the whole twin flame or higher level soulmate, is that you can kind of start mirroring each other. I'm not sure. I do believe twin flame is like a super special connection, but I feel like the people you're around, again, their frequency can pick up on it. If you are receptive to the twin flame journey and you feel that inspiration upon meeting someone, it's very much that they can absorb that energy. I know with my past relationship, we would constantly mirror each other. He
Mm,
would get a job. I would get a job. I
nice.
got a certain car. He got a very similar car years later. So I feel like we were mirroring each other constantly.
And the hugest thing that broke me through was knowing who you are. It wasn't until I really understood who I was. I mistaken people who I had a twin flame connection with for, I don't like to say my twin flame because I like to say we're twin flames, right?
Yes.
But it was so hard for me to accept that this really existed as a person. And I realized, okay, like, yeah, there's the mirroring and yeah, there's that person. And I was able to accept, wow, it wasn't until I realized who I was, damn, they popped
Yeah.
up. But at the same time, it taught me not at all to attach to that physical person, like whether I get with them or
Exactly.
not. It really just made me so happy that they
Yes.
exist and that I know now who I am more than ever to where I don't need anything. I think that was the biggest
Exactly.
gift about it.
And that is the biggest gift in the twin flame journey. I think that is the ultimate objective, and from there, you can kinda just surrender to the divine plan,
Yeah,
and, you find that you're not in resistance anymore, and you just have faith that whatever it is that you dream of, it's what you should be doing.
yeah,
That's the way I see it, is it's almost like you see it in your mind's eye, and that means that's what you should be doing, that it should be just like that. And, I work a lot with autism, autistic children, which again, I think brings me back to the Lilith myth very much because they would say Lilith gave birth to demonic children. And I worked
I've
very
heard of that.
closely.
I've heard of that, man. And that she might be behind abortion and eating the
Yeah.
kid. Yeah.
Yes, like that stuff. But like I feel in my life, someone could say these children are demonic. Of course, that's horrible
Ooh,
to
right.
say that, but the archetype manifested itself in my life in a very, very interesting way.
In your fifth house. Okay.
Yes, and I feel like these children, a lot of what they do is very repetitive behaviors.
Right.
I've worked with them for 8 years now, but I find that they're going into the minds. I think they're at the third eye chakra. I think they see the world differently as they're engaging in these repetitive behaviors. And I'm very interested in shamans as well, because I feel shamans also have this ability to kind of tap into the spiritual universe, the 5D, which I suspect these children are able to do.
Absolutely. I think that astrologically is correlated to Pluto, Sag, Cap, and then Uranus and Neptune and Aquaman. It's like they can tap into a frequency that older generations can't hear, that high frequency pitch. But
Exactly.
so I love everything you're saying. The people in the chat are loving it too. Shout out to those of
Awesome.
you. I know with the twin flame thing, I went from desperately seeking someone to complete me to
Yeah,
realizing I am complete. Like if I never meet this person, I'll be good. Like
right.
it really changed me coming to that realization. And then for those who have Jupiter or Saturn on the rising, moon or sun, Jupiter is the king of the gods. Saturn is the Titan king. So like that is a mark of royalty, especially on the rising, like king.
Yeah,
So that's dope. And then someone had asked if you were fraternal or identical.
identical, identical.
Identical twins.
Yeah,
Dope.
yeah,
So yeah, personally, you know, I think this is a really great preface because I don't think many people are aware how extraordinary the shifts we're making as a humanity are just crescendoing right now, similar to,
yes,
right? And like imagine being in 1776. Imagine being in the 1700s before you knew America would purchase Louisiana or would even be America. It's just the colonies. I don't really think they knew what they were doing was as revolutionary as it was. I think
yes,
responding to a problem, you know?
yeah,
So I'm really honored to talk to you about this. And I think this is a very necessary conversation, 0 degrees Pluto Aqua, because we're literally on the verge of finally processing all this change and ending an entire age. And
exactly.
yeah, looking
Yeah,
forward to that.
yeah. So I have a lot of kind of like predictions I have for Pluto and Aquarius and what I think is going to be going on. I like to focus on kind of the technological side of things as well as finance, because I think the U.S. dollar just has no value. I think these changes are going to be happening fast, and I feel just in general
Yeah.
the energy is so much faster in terms of manifestation as well. My manifestation powers are just, it almost scares me, but I'm learning to trust my intuition. Again, that's the return of the divine feminine, being able to balance it out and make logical decisions in conjunction with what your subconscious is trying to present to you in order to help you live a more fulfilled, less fearful driven life. But it's kind of ironic how you face your fears first. It gives you a test,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
then and then from there you change. You get presented with different things. But I'm really interested in the technology now that it's in Aquarius. I think that the algorithms are eerily relevant to your interests. They pick up on YouTube, TikTok. It measures engagement way too accurately. It can be just almost too perceptive of even our most intimate thoughts, which I think is very interesting for anyone who's addicted to tarot. No judging at all. I'll spend a lot of time reading tarot readings,
Yeah.
but I feel like if the algorithm is really able to pick up on some of your conversations, right? Which my sister had a job
Mhm.
being a transcriptionist for something like Siri. So if it's picking up on what we're talking about, the algorithm will present us the most relevant tarot reading to confirm whatever belief you may have. Now, this power that the technology could have is to me a little bit scary. So the algorithms kind of freak me out. But I think Pluto and Aquarius is going to be about us unearthing and discovering just how much power this technology could have.
So in light of that, have
Yeah.
have you heard recently that Elon Musk and other, engineer scientists are asking AI developers to stop and to halt? Like, could you guys slow down on what you're
Wow,
doing?
I didn't know that.
I
Yeah.
just found that out the other day and it blew my mind. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
And we're
Yeah.
just starting Pluto Aqua.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is the growth is exponential as well. So, I mean, it might be going way too fast. Like, we might be able to come up with a technology in order to help us manifest our drives and desires. This could be the next step. And I feel like, you know, with Saturn and Pisces, I think people are starting to get more interested in the spiritual side of things. And even, like porn addiction, stuff like that, this is all stored on our personal data, and it allows a very personal insight that can be used for very strange ends. I mean, the power is almost, it's a little scary. And, secrets may be revealed about how much big tech can manipulate and access the entire human collective for good and for ill. For example, like Cambridge Analytica a few years back, with the Facebook issue that happened, where they were trying to influence political um,
Right.
political imperatives, and they were all profiling each one of us and kind of recording our response to certain posts, certain things. So I feel like there's a whole profile they have on all of us. It's like a surveillance
Oh
state.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is
And more recently, I don't know if you're too familiar, but the Restrict Act, which is like the TikTok ban,
right.
it's being kind of masqueraded as this, for government protection. And, maybe China shouldn't be harvesting all our personal
Only
data.
America is allowed to do
Yeah.
that.
Right? So I'm really, concerned about data sovereignty. From my understanding, Web3, which could be the future, will allow us to be able to possess and sell our own personal data,
Yeah.
data sovereignty. So again, this is
Web
very
three. Okay.
Aquarian.
So a
Yeah.
new web, like I was thinking about like independent
Hmm.
web browsers that are not as regulated before the government makes a reason why they have to. This is very interesting because I mean, just with the whole notion once again of AI and its growing intelligence, almost as if the Capricorn period was to gather the data and now they're ready to
Exactly.
act on it. So I have a very far out question that I think is still far out because um I feel like Pluto Pisces is going to be a time where ghosts and metaphysical spirits are more physical, like we're able to
Yes.
perceive them more. And if Pluto Aquarius is now rolling in this new electronic grid, what are your thoughts on the potential of spirits to glitch and influence technology in a society that doesn't acknowledge spirits like that? And I mean, I don't want to really push this as, oh, this is possible, but what is, how influential can a spirit embody an AI programming and actually use that as a conduit?
So again, I feel I'm kind of a medium, right? So I hear a lot of my friends who have passed, and I believe they have the power to influence reality once their karma has been absolved to a certain point.
Okay.
So they do have influence once they're given enough power, and they feel less guilt over things that may have occurred in their life. And this allows them to kind of ascend in rank, and then again have more personal power
As they
over
gain more light. Okay.
what you're doing. And they do influence this reality. I try to personally, like through prayer, through different things like that, I allow them into my life, and I try to heal them just simply by remembering very positive memories I had with them. But they can absolutely influence what's going on in the 3D,
Yeah.
based on how much power they attain spiritually in the 5D. And a lot of that helps with just reminding them of all the beautiful times you had with them, and,
Yeah.
forgiving them. So I believe, again, this is where the manifestation piece comes out with the technology, because if the technology can start kind of quantifying the amount of time that someone may say something, which, you know, how we say we speak and spell, we have to word made flesh, like we have to be careful what we actually say because it may come true. It's like a spell. And the algorithm can pick up that piece, be able to quantify how much time it takes and relevant planetary alignments that allow it to manifest in the technology. I believe it is absolutely possible if you're a medium and stuff like that, that yeah, you can they can absolutely begin to influence the events of this
Absolutely.
reality.
And I just want to clarify, I'm not saying that AI is possessed by spirits, and that's
Mhm.
just to clarify in case anyone thinks that. I just want to, it's very important because I've had personal experiences of this, and because of materialist reductionism in a lot
Yes.
of rhetoric and science, they don't really acknowledge anything metaphysical. So I actually, was interacting with the spirit years ago, trolling me while I was working my fan. Like my fan,
Yes.
I literally had an experience and I laughed the whole thing off, but like the fan was spinning one way, it had stopped,
Yeah.
and then it started spinning the other way, which you have to press a button to do.
Yeah.
And so I had a dream catcher there. I was like, oh, this is a ghost trolling. But
Yeah.
now the way we're trained to reason things is, oh, that's obviously a technological glitch. And the
Right.
failure of that line of thinking is presupposing that it's either a spiritual response or it's a physical excuse, not knowing that the spiritual expresses itself through the physical. So just
Exactly.
because it's a technical glitch doesn't mean that a metaphysical being had. So, like, for it to influence that, which I know that occurrence wasn't natural, right? The whole point I wanted to make with that is not to say that AI is influenced, but if they were, who would know? You would have to
Exactly.
actually have the skills to discern that, which I feel mediumship, which you practice, is something that's going to awaken so much more in the new
Exactly.
generation, in our Pluto Scorpio generation. And I think with Pluto that's squaring our Pluto, just like the Pluto Libras who with Pluto Cap, they had to carry things. One
Yes.
thing that one thing people don't understand about our generation in it, the Pluto returning to Scorpio, is that everything the old world has built as far as traditions, as far as like social expectations, they're all ending with us. There's no
Yeah.
one of our age that's going to create anything new that holds that. I don't think the older generation knows that.
Yeah.
But it's going to create room for the new generation and Sag and forward to make new. So I'm excited about the psychic development and knowledge.
Yes, yes, me too. And it absolutely has influence. Sometimes I think even for ill, I feel people can, if they're really sensitive, they can even be almost possessed by like a demonic entity. And sometimes when I'm encountering like a negative energy that's being directed towards me, I will believe that it is some kind of demonic intervention trying to influence, you know, my behavior patterns, my thoughts, and keep me in a lower vibration.
Right.
So yeah, so I feel like some people kind of allow themselves to be I don't know if possessed is the right word, but definitely
I think
influenced.
possess
And
is the perfect word.
yeah, and they try, you know, and keep you in that lower vibration, which I believe is like a demonic objective down the board.
Absolutely. And
Um,
just to kind of because I should have just dropped major gems right now. I want to just kind of clarify what she said because it's very important. In mythology and our predecessors and ancestors' inability to make sense of certain things. Back then they would think guns or cars were spaceships or something like that. I mean, like
yeah,
theoretically. So, we have mythology and symbolism to show these beings as grisly. And so when she says demon, you might be thinking of some like mythological creature. It's easier to look at an alien as an extraterrestrial frequency and a demon as a
yeah,
vibration, right? So when you actually are depressed and you are of a low vibration, you are resonating at a frequency with which this vibration can
can
possess.
interact with you.
And so
Exactly,
when you're going high vibe, you're not just being positive, you're elevating your state so that
exactly.
you're not influenced by alien frequencies who try and
Yes.
your thoughts. And you can apply that to how, manipulation is done here on this planet. And I think how you broke that down was so beautiful because
Yeah.
it's really as simple as that. And that requires more responsibility and discipline to be, like you said before, watch your words, what you're saying, because
Yeah,
these energies want to influence you to keep those same programs in advertising and act. And people don't know these demon frequencies are real. Maybe
exactly.
way mythological. You can see them as psychological maladies or mental illnesses, but when you know everything has a soul, it really brings to light a lot of these things. I really also love what you were saying as far as like being more discerning about the nature of these algorithms and not necessarily just taking them for surface value, because as we'll continue to talk about, a lot of this Pluto transit alone is unveiling many secrets and unveiling a lot of knowledge that was uncovered in the past, but we couldn't necessarily understand it until now. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the power they have is just honestly, it's really scary because with the Restrict Act, it's like the Patriot Act Part 2, and they can flag the use of VPNs or privacy apps
wow.
to try and destroy like any data sovereignty we may have. And again, this is very Aquarian, anarchist revolution themes.
Yeah.
Um, and it's masqueraded as government protection. And I feel like, the relevancy of ads could be a situation where you can see how a micro manifestation actually works with a spiritual perspective. I've had people tell me it's simply God or it's simply Gaia communicating back with us, and we shouldn't be so afraid of a subversive government. Maybe we're meant to rise above that and actually trust the process that this is a spiritual, kind of like this spiritual entity of the planet that is coming to learn about itself through us. And technology, I think, is a great tool, instrument for that. And I think Pluto and Aquarius may bring these themes out into the open.
And in that vein, I think the importance of corruption and authorities who abuse their power, that's very, and I'm referencing every moment in history, especially every single revolution during Pluto Aqua. It's necessary because it forces the people to revolt and create change.
Exactly.
It's just I I it there's the other side of that where certain people use that same line of thinking to just kind of enable these people, like, oh, this is God put these people up here, we should just serve or whatnot. But I think the more challenging this is, I think the more rights are taken away, the more people will have to be pushed for inevitable revolution, which,
Exactly.
yeah. And a question I have for you is, what do you feel about the whole notion, because there's so much groundbreaking, extraordinary technology that's already been made. It's getting ready to be rolled out. What do you feel about the whole notion of these things being Trojan horses to
That's what I
proliferate
think.
humanity?
That's what I think a lot of it is. It's masqueraded as government protection, and this is where we're going to have to make critical decisions on what side we're going to be on.
Yes.
Hopefully, technology obviously brings everybody together, and I don't know if, censorship is going to be something that ultimately does happen. But these are all possible. But with the advent of things like Bitcoin, and being able to have a decentralized financial system again puts the power in our hands. We just have to be able to acknowledge and recognize the opportunities as they present themselves. And yes, from the way just over the past of my lifetime, events like 9/11, the 2008 financial market crash, and all of these things, I believe a lot of the elites do have occult knowledge. And even if you look at the performance of markets over time, they're relevant with astrological transits. So I feel like a lot of rituals are done, even interesting things like the VMAs, the MTV VMAs. You'll see someone like Taylor Swift wearing a red dress, and in the occult knowledge you kind of see her as some kind of sacrifice. This
Yeah.
is a ritual being done in real time, being watched by millions of people. The
Yeah.
power of these intentions are very intense. So I think they're all done in line with planetary alignments, and it's about exerting control and influence. And I absolutely believe the way they operate is by deceptive means. It doesn't always
Absolutely.
appears to be,
Yeah.
like it's for our own good, but there's a deeper thing to this, which I think Pluto and Aquarius again is going to be showing everything.
And I think what that deeper octave is if we flip on your head what you said, I think another limiting belief people have when it comes to these understandings is in forgetting how layered, nuanced, and limitless a lot of these things are. So even
Yes,
even people who have no idea about astrology or these rituals are in effect playing their role that they have chosen to
exactly.
play. So it's like they're being instruments of these planets, of these forces that are sentient, that are conscious, metaphysical, beyond.
Right.
Science has recorded the whole influence of forces that our brain, there are colors out there that our eyes can't perceive, sound,
Exactly.
they don't exist just because we can't see them, and these are higher forces. So you know,
Right.
I think we're going to start to see the greater hand and influence that imprints on us down here, um,
Exactly.
which will be really, really
Exactly.
interesting.
And I even think even the power of observing these things, like as just like an audience member or watching from TV, we don't know the power we have as a collective. In a
Right.
quantum level, in a quantum level, the atoms of certain things we're observing actually respond to us observing them. So again, that's like a micro manifestation at that point as well.
Yeah.
They want us not to know the power that we truly have. And we have a lot more power than we
A
understand.
lot
And
more.
on the quantum level, observation, being able to kind of perceive things in our five senses, that's what we understand. But there's so many levels to what exactly is occurring at this time.
And in line of deception, you know, especially through the Saturn Aquarius population control cycle, population Aquarius Saturn control, the
Yes,
we never saw censorship until Saturn went into Aquarius, and
yes,
limitations of humanity, which literally spells it out. But you know, these driving of the narrative, Saturn government movement behind Neptune, a deception. 12th house to this, we saw like the assassination of many cryptocurrency holders, almost as if to drive this narrative that cryptocurrency is unstable, even
yeah,
though there's manipulation behind the scenes to make it look like
yes,
that. Um,
exactly.
so I know you were mentioning or had kind of noted the decentralization of Bitcoin and that being very Pluto Aqua.
Yes, so I think, yeah, that I do distinguish between Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. I feel Bitcoin as the commodity is a safer way to go. From my understanding, it is completely decentralized. We completely get rid of the banking structure altogether. And I feel like this is definitely an interesting move for us all to go into and to consider. I know countries like El Salvador are completely adopting it. And look, I mean, with SVB Bank, all these major bank players just collapsing,
Yeah.
we're going to be bringing what I believe will be a stable coin. So but this will be controlled. My concern is what if, with the stable coins we start using one of those and adopt that mass adoption of that they'll be able to turn off our funds at any time. The control is a lot more apparent. But I'm very much a proponent of Bitcoin. I believe it is truly decentralized and allows and gives the power back to the people, which again is so relevant to the Pluto and Aquarius, which may possibly happen.
Yeah, and we have to remember historically, this was a period where we saw the end of civilizations due to pestilence and illness. We saw
Right.
we saw the end of total political structures and monarchies in light of democracy now
Right.
starting spread its face and spread across Europe, post America, even with Haiti and
Yeah,
slavery. And it's important to note that these themes are coming back around again, where we're going to see the end of certain nations we've seen rule for a while. We're going to see mass extinction events. We're going to see this whole notion of repopulating the world towards a new order,
yeah,
coming into this next karmic cycle. And as scary as this may be, I think you need to have more exhilaration and courage to
yeah,
really step up, because fear is going to be the hugest propaganda. Where, unlike back then, now there's technology monitoring and data compiled on us. And I think it's going to bring an awakening in us, something that can't be televised. I'll
yeah.
say so.
Yeah. So
Wow.
I really think, we can potentially move into this surveillance state, but I feel we are in co-creation with a higher power, and we have to be able to trust and kind of allow the fears that do present themselves. We allow them into our space. We don't let them completely influence our energy, but we acknowledge them. I'm really a proponent of being able to, I'm not like into hardcore positivity. I believe that whatever fears may arise, you have to allow them as guests into your space and be able to work through them and start to move forward from there. And based on your performance, on how well you responded to that test, then new opportunities present themselves. That's kind of my understanding of magic and manifestation. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of changes happening, and once you go into the astrology of things and you harmonize yourself with the alignment of the planets, you find that you're where you're supposed to be. I mean, I've had a few scary situations happen where I was following my transit so closely back in 2012 that I was a MK mind control victim. Like, I actually went there because everything had some kind of symbolic resonance to me, which would bring up old traumas from like my childhood, and I'd be controlled basically by fear. This was the very beginnings of my spiritual journey, but now I've learned that if you simply acknowledge them, you acknowledge where you're at, you acknowledge the feelings, you can pass the test, and lovingly, with self-compassion, you get presented with opportunities to connect with like-minded people and be able to, again, as a collective, actually start to influence and make some changes for our best intentions.
I love that.
Yeah,
And we've been in the middle of a huge culture war that's
yeah.
intensified. I feel like it's reaching its climax. How do you feel like where we're headed into is ready to transform culture itself?
Oh, it's so divisive, and really, I find this is a lot in my personal life. It affects me quite a lot. I feel there's just not everyone is completely conscious and awake. The scary thing is that I do acknowledge that certain people may have, everyone has intuition. People are tapped into a certain point, but not all use it for good. Others use it to try and kind of covertly influence you in the most personal and intimate ways. Things like covert SA, that may happen in any interaction with anyone, but again, based on how you respond to the situation, that again, like I kind of just see it as a test. But I'm trying to work on my faith in humanity. But I will say, I think everyone is intuitive and has a power to a certain point, but not everyone is using it for good. They're
Right.
still kind of trapped in ego. They still want to compete with you. They still, it's not about you versus me. We really need to start thinking about we. We really do.
And I think that's the most important thing you said, because people have a misconception that awakening and leveling up spiritually means that you become a good person. Really, only God is good. So, the intuition, the nature of your abilities are really just a part of your entire personality and your behavior. So if you have a shitty behavior, you're going to use these abilities for to be shitty. And I think this is bringing us into a new era of magic wars. And
Yes.
one thing that I'm fully confident in that's not, of course, going to be talked about in mainstream media, at least in a way that's not manipulative, I think, is because I think one of the most important things you said that people don't realize is this is going to happen really fast. Like we're
Yes.
going
I
slow and
really feel that.
one
It's
after the
different.
other. Right. And if
Yeah.
you're not ready for that,
It could scare you.
it could
You
scare
know,
you
you have
a
to
lot.
be
Yeah.
ready.
Absolutely. And it's just going
Yeah.
to challenge everything you believe about yourself. My question, especially for those of you in the live chat, because you said it yourself, and with the Saturn that was is sextiling our Saturns, this manifestation ability being scary, like I've noticed that with me too, where certain things I intend for happen at a much quicker, sooner rate. It feels almost like we're learning how to drive a new car, which
Yeah.
is really exciting, but it really helps you wonder, like, make sure you really want what you want. But what do you feel about this awakening, specifically in people born after 95? Of course, there's Pluto Libra and Pluto Scorpio. If we have any Pluto Virgos, I feel like y'all are masters here. I think we're stepping into the evolution of consciousness through
Agreed.
practical superpowers.
Yes.
Um,
Exactly.
what do you feel about? I think as of now, people all over the world are awakening legitimate abilities that are misunderstood because of
Yes.
our programming. They're
Exactly.
diagnosed as mental illnesses. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So and I feel like you hold one of the most important positions as a behavioral analysis, as someone who deals directly with children who before they get brainwashed, you can at least help demystify things. Superpowers, I think, because of movies, are seen as something a lot more external when a lot of what we're awakening is internal in our psychology. So what do you feel?
Exactly. So I feel there's it that just brought up something else for me in terms of different shamanic practices and different magical herbs that allow you to be able to access the 5D. And as a behavior analyst, again, I think this is the return of the divine feminine, of the more creative, intuitive, and spiritual understanding for it to be worked in complete balance with one another. And I think that's what's going to happen. It's going to be just bringing it back into balance. And there's so many ways in our world that we're seeing with our children. It's like, okay, maybe they're taking longer to be able to verbally express themselves, but look at how the splinter skills manifest themselves. I mean, you'll have children who have this uncanny ability to be able to tap into you as a therapist. I would be like, are they doing therapy on me? Like, who's doing therapy on who?
Right.
Symbolically in my mind, I'd see colors like the orange construction paper, and they would very much through their eyes almost heal me, which would tie me back to the orange chakra. And again, kind of that symbolic meaning and how these spiritual experiences manifest themselves in the 3D. It could be something as simple as orange construction paper. In my case, it's about healing the sacral chakra, and these children, through their beautiful, radical self acceptance, were helping me, you know, in my own traumas while I'm working.
No.
You know, you're having spiritual experiences with these children. And, you know, there's just so much to learn about all that.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
you confirmed something major for me as far as things coming back to balance. So Queen Dom mentioned that she's saying and thinking things and they're happening like so much quicker, and I realized that a lot of what we think are awakening superpowers, we're not doing that. We're returning to our natural state. We're
Right.
supposed to be naturally
Exactly.
right, and it's like we're learning how to be babies again, back to the basics, and
Yes.
reclaim who we really were before the government, our society, and family told us everything we're not.
Exactly. Exactly.
Which
Yeah.
is super awesome. Aisha, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This talk was amazing. We definitely invite you back on for
Oh, absolutely.
if you have any more points you want to speak on or share, I mean, obviously we're just getting started, so we'll,
Yeah, yeah, I'd love to return again. We can talk about a few different things as well.
and even if it's this one is this apocalypse talk series, if there are any other like topics outside of this, we can do that as well. It's so glad, it's so nice to have you back.
Wonderful, yes.
If you guys haven't checked out the first Peace Talk, please check that out. It's definitely a classic. I have your YouTube and Instagram down there. Please show her some love.
Awesome.
If anything, is there anything else you wanted to share with us as words of wisdom or anything?
No, that's all, except maybe trust the process. No matter how scary things may get, there is a compassionate, higher power that's trying to bring us to the best we could possibly be.
Beautiful. And thank you all in the live chat for showing love, subscribing, following. And this is a definitely amazing talk as we integrate this full moon and burst through our evolution. Let's make it count. And you guys have a blessed week ahead. And until next time.
Thank you all so much. Bye.